So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest ITESOFT Insider View. I'm joined by Accounts Payable Association's Jamie Radford.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming down. Today we're going to be talking about what's going on in accounts payable, what's going to be going on in accounts payable. The next few months for both of us, I guess. Jamie, give us a quick sort of rundown, brief history on yourself, your company.
Great. Yeah, so the Accounts Payable Association is 3 years old this year. We are the largest and only UK Accounts Payable Association. We cover everything from accounts payable through to procure to pay. We are a membership organisation with circa 50,000 members, predominantly in the UK. We have a series of courses and certification programmes, 6 in total. And we also then do a conference, which you guys are coming to this year for the first time. So we're looking forward to hosting you later in 15th of October.
Excellent. Okay. So aside from the courses and obviously you talked about the conference, you've got something coming up called Top 50 Influencers. Do you want to shed some light on that for us?
Absolutely. So during our conference, we have an award ceremony during the conference, and we look at AP managers, AP teams. What we're trying to do this year is reward all those individuals that have helped us as an industry and our association grow by supporting, whether it's a blog post, whether it's a post on social media, anybody who's influenced the growth of our industry, which has come from effectively nothing. Right. We're going to reward them, and they're going to be placed on the top 50 influencers. So it can be an individual from somebody within an accounts payable organisation or somebody that's influenced the actual industry as well. And we've just had so many nominations so far. Been amazing.
Got an inside scoop on anyone that we should be following?
Oh, that'd be telling. But ultimately, if you look at, again, so we'll talk a little bit hopefully later about the conference. Mm-hmm. But this year we've had a couple of keynote speakers joining us. One of them being world-renowned Mary Schaefer. Right, okay. And I think she ticks every box to be an AP influencer. So Mary has her own podcast. She has her own website. I think it's called apnow.com. And I definitely suggest people go and check those things out, as well as I believe she's an author of at least 18 books. So absolutely a world-renowned individual. So go and check Mary out, definitely.
Cool. Thank you for that. You mentioned your conference. Where is it? When is it? What's happening? Who's there?
Cool. 15th of October, central Birmingham. The theme this year is going to be all around leadership. Mm-hmm. So last year it was all about AI and robotics. I think we scared everybody to death. This year it's more about leadership. It's about a career in transactional finance. Right. So a lot of our audience tend to be senior finance managers, very transactional focused. So they could be AP, even AR and P2P. So we're looking at this year and how we can motivate these guys, what advice can we do. So on the day you'll expect panel discussions for the first time, with some automation in there, with some Slido app, I think it is. Lots of involvement from the audience itself, and we're expecting circa 300 people this year. Right. So it's a big conference. It's grown each year. And there's always special things happen on the day. Bit of glitz and glamour. That's all I'm going to say on that one.
Okay, that's a surprise waiting to happen then.
Absolutely.
All right. So moving on into sort of what's happening in accounts payable aside from what's happening with APA.
Yep.
At the moment, the big thing in AP, what's going on?
Yeah, look, I don't think the big thing will ever change other than things like automation. Mm-hmm. Automation is always a big topic. You've got so RPA, AI, automation. These are all very big topics, and there always will be a big topic. What we're seeing, though, is that people are becoming more educated in those environments. Right. So they're asking questions. We as an association, we constantly ask our members to join things like webinars, which I know you guys do plenty of, educational webinars. Keep themselves up to date. Find out what's going on in the industry. So there's that element, so that will never go away, and it's always going to be a big topic. And then there's probably two others. So there's fraud and fraud prevention. Right. Big topic across the globe, this one. There's a lot of issues around this. And then generally, as an association, the uptake in our certification programs and becoming more qualified in and recognised for what they do.
Right. So say I was an AP professional.
Yep.
And I took one of your courses. Where does that take me within my organisation?
Well, firstly, it gets you recognised.
Right.
So you get recognised for what you actually do. When we started the association, 90% of our audience have no route to any professional qualification. They don't want to be accountants generally. So the reason why we created the certification program was, one, to become recognised in what they do, but two, it's that benchmark, it's that knowledge, it's accessing other people. Hence the reason we have a large forum where we ask people to go and join and communicate. We have private groups where we get leaders together, and it's constantly, it's about content, it's about evolution of benchmark data and all that good stuff, but it is effectively getting people to communicate with one another. It's a network, really. Okay. But again, the certification programs help them to become recognised for the good and hard work they do.
Cool. Good. That's
so are you going to do the course now?
Yeah, I think I'll sign up. So from our sort of perspective, the big thing in accounts payable, you mentioned automation.
Yep.
We're seeing a lot of people wanting to know about capture from email, automatic email capture, because previously it's been you get more invoices via paper, but now that's switching over. The last few years have seen it switch across to email.
Yep.
I think as it's becoming more sort of available to from companies such as ours, more people are knowing about it, that it's a possibility, and I think that's something that we've heard a lot about.
And again, to sort of, I think there's some confusion around automatic email capture. So I think a lot of businesses get confused whether that's an electronic invoice, an EDI type capture. So we have absolutely seen that as an association, and we get lots of questions from members saying, well, we've now got emails coming into our inbox that we print off, scan, and they're electronic invoices. No, it's not. E-invoicing. So there is some still confusion, and I know that I've worked with one of your colleagues, John, and we're trying to continue to educate. So absolutely, automatic email capture is a big topic, but it's what it leads to. You know, what's the next stage? So you've captured it, it's automatic. What can you then do with that captured email? That's the next stage for it. And I believe you guys are the guys to sort of help our audience with that ultimately. Yeah,
definitely. So check out the links below. So moving on to the next big thing in accounts payable. Where do you think, where is the road leading us to? Yeah, so
again, during our certification programs, we talk to senior managers, and if you look at the evolution of the process of an AP process, a P2P process, it always starts, if you start at the beginning of the process, if you've got rubbish information, don't expect to have great information at the end of it. So I would definitely suggest things like supplier portals. It's where ultimately information is captured, early days, is captured in a correct manner, and the work, if you like, is put onto the supplier for them to inform the customer themselves about their info. And there's a big want, there really is. And what we're finding is that there's some organisations have got supplier portals in different guises, but a lot of our organisation we talk to now are realising you've got to fix the first part of the process, so the rest of the process becomes a little easier. So supplier portals, definitely. And then, as we talked about earlier, fraud prevention and detection methods as a global thing, ultimately. These phishing scams, anything that can sort of... We educate our audience on things like the controls you can put in place, whether that's manual or automated, but then obviously there's automated solutions can help you try and resolve or stop these errors and frauds happening in the first place. A big area for a global community.
Definitely. I think the less even human touches on invoice or even any sort of financial document, then the less chance there is for fraud to occur.
Yeah, and again, so when we teach, we say, absolutely, automation, go that way. But, when you're looking at like reporting elements, report by exception rather than report by everything. So look at the anomalies.
Right.
So that's where the automation kicks in, and then the anomalies come out, and then that's when an individual becomes more of an analytical individual to go and check that type of data out. So again, that's what we're doing, and globally, that's where it's becoming the bigger issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much point in, or benefit even, in automating all your invoices to then sit and look through them to make sure that they're all going all right.
Absolutely. It's where, the life of an AP or a P2P person, it's a thankless task. It really is. And I say this all the time. You turn up to work, you've got a pile of stuff to do. the telephone's ringing and people don't ring to say thank you very much. They're phoning you up to complain about something or chase for payment. So anything you can do to help the roles of these individuals is amazing. And automation is absolutely a big plus, but you have to have the controls in place as well as then the reports to assist you when you're going through those elements.
Exactly. Cool. Is there anything else that you think would be coming up for AP?
Well, look, I want to reference back to our conference. You know, the big thing for us ultimately, in the next big thing in accounts payable is leadership. It really is. One of the things when we're teaching and we do our certification programs, it's very hands-on, it's role-specific, it's all about what they do in a day-to-day. What we're finding now is that all of our audience and our members are asking for what's next. So the conference this year is all focused on how do we develop individuals to become world-class, best-class leaders. And we've got a brand new program coming out this year which will be announced at the conference, and it's a leadership program, so it has things in there like stakeholder management, a lot of project management elements, but also one of our keynotes is coming along as opposed to just Mary's, a chap called Brad Burton.
Right.
Now if you've not seen Brad Burton, definitely check out a couple of his videos before you come to the conference. He's a colourful character.
Right.
He has the AP haircut and sort of the very short haircut that he has. But you know what? I've been lucky enough to see him a couple of times. I've watched his videos and he's such an inspirational character. He's got a great backstory, and I think our audience this year will be motivated and led by an individual that's been in business 14 years and has seen it all, done it all. But actually I think hopefully his message will resonate with the audience, that in environments which is very repetitive, it's a little bit mundane, it can be the accounts payable world. Sometimes you need that motivation, and I think what Brad will bring to us this year is exactly that. And you know, so I'm up first at the conference, so you know they'll have a boring little speech from me ultimately, and then I think we've got another speaker, Karen Young's joining this year again from Hayes, and she always does an amazing job of telling us all about what's going on in the recruitment world.
Right.
and sort of that side. But then we got Brad. So around about 11 o'clock, I think he calls it being Bradded. So we're all going to be there. I know you're going to be there as well, Rory. Yeah. So will we all singing and chanting? I don't know. But it's a big thing for us. We really want people to evolve. We want the leadership skills to come out a lot more. And again, go back to this recognition point. We want our members and our senior members to be recognised for who they are and what they do. And I think the leadership side is definitely the next evolution from the AP world. And it then links back to you guys, you know, solution providers generally, because what they become then is they're driving their teams to become more analytical, upskilling their teams as including themselves. Structurally, they set up their structures better and sort of aligning themselves to either solutions or the business as a whole, how businesses are structured. And that's part of the program. It's about taking yourself out of the day-to-day running of an accounts payable function and a more strategic, how do you take this function forward so you get recognised, but ultimately you're constantly adding value to an organisation. So that's the next big thing for us.
Okay, just adding on to that a little bit, from sort of our side, when we're looking at sort of the AP space, it's constantly changing as far as technology goes. I guess sort of people management and change management is also sort of nestled nicely into that sort of leadership stuff.
Absolutely, and so our management course takes them through some of the softer skills around people management. But again, you know, we're big advocates of this about the motivational elements. So if you're not motivated yourself, how are you supposed to motivate others? So part of our leadership program this year is we have some personal development elements in there. So we're announcing during the conference a couple of other, if you like, day courses. So for the first time, the association we'll have our online programs. We have a couple of what we call fast track, where we get bunches of people in a room with myself and another tutor for a few days, and that always goes exceptionally well. But we've got a series of training courses coming out during 2019 into 20, and they will cover things like change management, stakeholder management, leadership skills, a whole array of content or sort of courses that actually our members have asked for. So it's not us coming up with some crazy ideas about what's the next evolution of leadership. We've gone out and we've spoken to our members continually, and they come back and go, we're running a project, solutions project, and I'd like to know about how do I build the business case? How do I do the stakeholder management? What's change management look like for me? And what's the implementation process? These are all parts that we will cover either in the leadership program or the day courses that we'll be offering going forward.
Right.
And we're already signed up for a whole bunch of these already, and we haven't even announced them. So there's a real need for them.
Definitely.
But ultimately, they've got to tie back to adding the value to the individual, the organisation, and then the progression of the actual industry as a whole.
Cool.
Get you one of those as well.
Yeah. Oh,
Signed up. So far, you've signed up to a certification and definitely a day course. So there's no going back, I'm afraid, Rory.
It's fine. So we sort of discussed AP departments changing with sort of new technology. How do you think the AP role is changing? I think that obviously we're losing paper, maybe not as quickly as we'd like, but I think that's happening. So yeah, what do you think is happening there?
I think we referenced it earlier. I think the role of an AP clerk, team leader, manager, whatever type of role, becoming more analytical.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's upskilling, it's understanding technology, process, people, change. There's a whole array of things that our audience have to adapt to, but a lot of it now stands with the analytical skills. Because, and I referenced it earlier in the conversation, is that, again, the solution provider might come in and automate processes and reduce paper, absolutely. However, you've still got to have those analytical skills, because at some point the automation solution may not work, or there might something slip through the net. So although it's an exciting time in the world of accounts payable for individuals, it's quite a scary time also.
Yeah.
But I've been in AP 20 plus years. I know I don't look young, old enough, but I've been 20 plus years, and I've heard of this AP automation taking jobs and all this good stuff for 20 years.
Okay.
Clearly what's happened over those 20 years, we've become better, we've become more process efficient, and roles have moved, but they've become upskilled, and people then tend to move around an organisation or upskill themselves in a continual role. So yeah, the digital age for an AP clerk or an AP team leader is daunting and a little scary, but I believe the extra skills our audience are taking and getting is added value to them ultimately. It's not the transactional process anymore, it's the more added value analytical skills that they absolutely require and need.
Do you think that somebody who's sort of been in AP for, I don't know, 10, 20 years, is looking for to work in a new company, if they see that company is all automated and the role is highly analytical and big data and all of these scary buzzwords are there, do you think that's likely to put someone off, or do you think the AP person is more resilient and motivated for the challenge?
I think there's a mix of both, if I'm brutally honest with you. I think that I was a consultant for many years in the world of transactional consultancy, and I'll be honest, the only reason I was called into companies was because it was in either a mess or needed some automation. So it was not a scary environment for me. Right. But 5-10 years ago, absolutely, people would have been put off if scary words were given to them at interview stage. Heaven forbid if it was AI, RPA, automation, you name it. These buzzwords, if they were put into an interview 5-10 years ago, absolutely. Yeah. Now it's common talk. Every job spec you see will have some form of either scanning, some form of automation, and I think that if you like, the words and the terminology are becoming second nature to everybody. Some of the organisations we deal with have none. They have no automation. They're still very manual in their processes, and the individuals have been at the organisation a long time, so they're not even aware of what that looks like.
What's happening?
Hence the reason we ask them to join webinars, get in our forums, and educate themselves ultimately, because sometimes it's just nice to know what others are doing, so you can either follow suit and learn from the mistakes ultimately, but it's not as scary anymore. I really do believe people are adapting to it. It's becoming second nature to individuals. It's just the level of speed of change. I think that's what it comes down to.
Okay. So you don't think that sort of the AP role is dead? That maybe... Well,
I hope not.
the invoice processor role, or the AP clerk, maybe will start to be branded as financial analytics or something like that?
Well, yeah, look, as I say, the terminology AP clerk or role being dead, I don't think it'll ever happen, if I'm brutally honest with you, purely on the basis that there'll always be elements of transaction needed. Transactional process will always needed. I mean, in the true, anybody who's been in an AP manager's role or a clerk role, which I have, through my career progression, there's always those anomalies that, how great solutions are and systems are, there's the anomalies that can't handle. What automation and sort of evolution will bring is less of it ultimately. So, and I agree with you totally that I think the role of a clerk may well move into more of an analytical. So some of the larger organisations we work with have started to adapt to P2P, so procure to pay, so procure to pay analysts. So rather than an AP clerk, they're becoming procure to pay analysts, but AP analysts as well. And we do surveys once a year, and we ask what's in a job title. And a lot of our audience are saying, we're purchase ledger, or accounts payable, or procure to pay, and roughly, give or take, they do a similar role. But what we're finding is that our audience are asking the question of us and their organisations about the nature of the role. If they are doing more analytical roles, can they be at least recognised in the job title? But then that leads to salaries and all the good stuff. So at that point we step out. But it's about the education. It's about understanding what an analytical role does. And it doesn't have to all be about solutions. It can be around data analytics. So looking at statement reconciliations and supplier portals, which you mentioned earlier, fraud prevention. It doesn't have to be just the manager or the team leader's role. Everybody's got to be aware of this, and they get involved in sort of the processes and the controls that sit around those as well. So lots of exciting stuff for an AP person. So no, definitely not dead, but ultimately I just think a very exciting route ahead for everybody. And by nature, the roles of AP, individuals are progressing at a rate. Salaries are starting to increase because of our certification programs, because of the more analytical roles that people are taking. And it's great having solution providers such as yourselves, recruitment partners, and a whole array of partners we've got, because the more noise we can create about our industry, the more professional it becomes, and everybody wins ultimately.
Right. And do you think that the progression within the roles might help attract younger people to those jobs?
I think so, yeah. So I did a podcast with your colleague John, and we talked about millennials and all the stuff that's way before my time. But ultimately what it leads to us is that one of the questions that we ask quite a lot is, was accounts payable a career of choice?
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, any manager will tell you no. And I'm yet to find somebody who's gone, yes, I chose it from career from school, and I went into accounts payable, it's been my career forever. What you find is people tend to fall into accounts payable, love it, love the people, love the processes, and stay with it for a really good period of time. What we're trying to do though is adapt it so it's a real career. It really is. Our certification programs, our members love it, and everybody that's in it really engage with it. So we're trying to get to that younger generation now early and say, right, this is a career prospect for you. It's not the days of, go and do a quick financial transactional role as a stepping stone to become whatever. This is a career. It's a transactional role, especially in things like large shared service centres. They are real career of choice elements. Hence the reason we're going after very young individuals from school leavers, university leavers and above, but our core audience tend to be people who are already in the AP industry itself.
Cool. All right. So moving on, we talked a bit about your certification courses.
Yep.
Have you got any sort of frequently asked questions that crop up that can cut out now that they don't have to ask you later, or I won't have to ask you when I come to the course?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to give you any of the answers. The certification courses are broken down into modules, so they're broken down to process. And the process tends to cover the transactional elements of items. And what we find in those areas, and in the world of finance generally, there's lots of acronyms.
Right.
So you go into a meeting with a bunch of financial accountants and a bunch of tax specialists or whatever, and lots of acronyms are used. And to an AP person, it's double Dutch. It really is. So we have a lot of questions about acronyms. In terms of the transactional, about best practice, how to transact. Things like pro forma invoices, how to handle those. So in the world of process, we have a lot of best practice conversations. So when you do come on the course, just be aware that we're expecting you to know some of these best practices. But the beauty of our environments and the way we teach, whether it's online or it's in the classroom, you have a network behind you. So you're always learning, and so we are as an association. We're not the experts. Our courses are written and they're evolving. So we do a lot of audience participation type stuff. So you'll get that if you attend one of our certification programs. But then on top of that, we have an area on suppliers. So we talk about supply management. So although it's arguably more procurement focused, but if you look in a true P2P world, you need to be involved in that process. So we talk about the relationships between accounts payable and procurement, so that overlap, and there should be a real nice relationship between both organisations or departments. And what we find a lot of the times is they know of each other, and there's a process that starts here and stops here, but there's no integration between the two generally, and that's where we see some added value. We have a module on sort of risk and controls, and that's a big area for us ultimately. And that's everything from solutions. It's about preventative and reactive controls that we can sort of look at. So reactive controls about what happens if something happens. Preventative controls about the reports that you can have in advance to make sure things are sort of going in the right way. And we do a lot about that. And we have so many questions about things like segregation of duties,
right.
And I'm sure as solution providers you guys must have these questions when you do projects. Who does what roles people have got, and we do even go to the root a little in sort of ERPs, how ERPs are used, the SAPs and the JD Edwards and the Oracles, etc.
Right.
But it tends to be very interactive. It's an audience type thing really. Even online you have online tutors, so there's always that environment that you can ask questions and learn and have the best practices, as well as the sort of cutting edge leading material that we've got. The community is just as powerful as well.
Right. Is it on a sort of a similar platform to your digital conference that was earlier this year?
Very similar, yes.
Right.
So our learning content is on a learning platform very similar, and again the way it works for us is ultimately our members or our sort of attendees will go through that. And so our digital conference, which again your colleague John was on and did a great podcast with us, that's great content for us because it's there forever and a day now, and the engagement was really high. And what we find with our conference in October is, yes, it's in Birmingham and yes, it's a day, but there's an awful lot of people out there that just can't get the time to come or the budgets or whatever. So the idea around the digital conference this year was, let's reward everybody so they can at least get a taste of what happens at a conference. And again, we had Mary Schaefer on the conference with us, we had John and a whole bunch of really interesting people. And you're right that what we've done with that learning content, we've then shared that back with our community as well as our sort of our members, and sort of said, look, go learn from these pieces of content. What was excellent was some of the podcasts that went on in that sort of live environment. There was just live questions being thrown at, and I think you get better answers when you got live questions rather than pre-descriptive questions. And there was some excellent little nuggets of gold that came out of those sessions. So we're as an association, we're constantly pushing people to that environment, and there was even a virtual chat room. So it was like being at the conference itself. You'd have lots of chat. And I was asked lots of questions, and some were a little bit personal, but most of them were very professional. Really great, and we're looking forward to doing another one actually towards the end of this year, early part of next year. So we're going to do another one, and similar sort of format. It's a global sort of bit of technology, but we're obviously very focused on the UK market, which is where we're sort of growing UK and Ireland ultimately.
Cool. Okay.
So can I ask you some questions?
Of course you can, yeah.
So I see lots of content from you guys, and it's all really educational, and I'm a big fan, I really am, of educational content for our audience. So what drives you guys to those educational content? Because these vlogs, the podcasts, all the content you do tends not to generally be about your solution, it's about the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of have the approach that if you don't try to sell your solution or yourself too forcefully, we're not cold calling up AP clerks anymore. And if you give value, as you guys do, it's what we think at least people want to hear or want to know about. Sort of, it's associated to AP automation, because otherwise, why would we want to talk about it? people then, like our content, hopefully trust it, and then come to us for help when they need it.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of the whole ethos around that.
And I agree, and your colleague John Stovall, I've been speaking to about that subject, and I'm a big fan of that approach, only on the basis that our audience have so many things like webinars and content available to them that ultimately leads to something.
Yeah.
If you can provide lots of content which is educational, which we're focused on ultimately, on the basis that it's the like and trust, we're big fans. So it's, again, my hat's off to you guys the way you do things, because your content we can then use to educate our audience. And yes, we're clearly we advise them to go to your webinars and others, because that's another way of learning. But I just wanted to mention that it was great content. It's very driven by the topic of a conversation. It doesn't have to be all roads lead back to Rome.
No.
It's whatever's relevant at that time that I see your content coming out. It's very good.
That's good feedback. Thank you very
No
much.
problem at all.
Cool.
So you're definitely coming to our conference.
Uh-huh.
You're definitely on a certification program.
I'll be there.
We'll just have to get this budget thing from you. We'll definitely get you some of these courses. But I think the thing for us is ultimately we engage with our partners and which we've done during the year. But it's really important for us to get a partnership going that ultimately you feel that you can engage with our audience and they feel they can do the other way around. So at our conference this year, what you'll see is, because it is the first year you guys have come, it's an entire team. We're all in the same big room. There's no us and them ultimately. Right. Our audience are just lovely people. I would say that, but they are lovely people and they're so engaging. They really are. As long as you've got something great content to give them and some advisory services, they're a very great, engaging bunch of people. If the conference is like last year, amazing success. We've got so many other things happening on the day, which they're being released as we speak, so I don't want to give too much away. But it'd be great to see you guys there this year and see what our audience think.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Cool. So, Jamie, quickly, just before we wrap everything up, tell the camera what's going on, where they can see you next, and how we can sort of engage with you guys.
Perfect. So the best way to get a hold of ourselves is our website. It's AP Association, ap-association.com. And you'll find our conference on there, you'll find all our courses and certification, and you'll find our membership program as well. So this year we've got a brand new membership program, very targeted at corporate or employers, going exceptionally well. Suggest your audience, our audience, go and check those out, and really want your audience and ours to attend the conference this year, because it's the face-to-face elements that people really enjoy. So hopefully they'll see you all there.
Cool. Thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.
And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you in the next Insider View.